Pinterest changed again. Like, this is kind of like I start sounding like a broken record, but it's totally true that Pinterest has made some new changes. And today I'm going to share what those are. My name is Jennifer Priest, and I'm the founder here at Smart Creative Social. And I'm the creator of Smart Pin Pro, a program that helps businesses like yours get massive Pinterest traffic. Now, we're talking about building an organic traffic machine, not paid, not ads, not any of that stuff. It's all organic, is what I teach. So, um, and we have people all the time that are getting traffic that way. So it's totally still possible right now this year. So let's talk about what are the changes that have happened on Pinterest. You might be in some Facebook groups. You might have heard some rumblings around. Maybe you get some emails from people. Maybe you're on. You listen to some people's podcasts, and there's been a few things that people are talking about right now, which is the change in the character count on your profile description on Pinterest. This is that description that goes right underneath your profile when people come to your Pinterest account. It's the first thing that they see. But Pinterest also uses this to index your account to find out what your account is about. So it's really important, the words that are in there. And we had only about 150, 160 characters or so, I think is what it was at before. I never memorize the number. I just go, how much room do I have to put all the words in I need to put in there. But now it is bigger. So this is good news. And then another change is that some people have noticed that in the back end, you can no longer connect on some people's accounts. You can no longer connect your Etsy account for analytics or your YouTube account for analytics on your Pinterest account. And so what does this mean for you, right? And are there more changes that you need to be paying attention to? So there's a few things that I think are really important to know. And while we can get into the minutia of like the character count and what you should do to optimize your description on your profile and what does it mean to connect and not connect your Etsy or your YouTube or where's Pinterest going with it? Those are all things that we can analyze within the SMART method framework that I teach inside my program. And that's where we take the signals, right? Things like finding out about this kind of stuff. Things like this video right here. This is a signal about what's going on at Pinterest. The modes, the way that we can package stuff on Pinterest. Is it an idea pin? Is it a standard pin? We take those two things and we analyze them. Then we do some research to figure out, okay, well, how do we, based on our analysis of what does this mean for me? I do some research. How do I actually execute on this? I come up with a plan and then I test it. I execute on that plan to see like, does my idea about this jibe? Like we're basically doing like the scientific method from fourth grade science, seventh grade science. I don't remember when we started doing science projects. I think it was fourth grade. So um, all that to say, like, there's a method to going through this, but I want to give you something really tangible in this broadcast for what you can do about certain Pinterest changes. So the first thing is when you start hearing about Pinterest changes, I don't know about you, but me, this used to be me in the past. This is still people inside of our program. We get this every once in a while where you hear there's a change and you start to panic because you're like, I don't have time to deal with changes. I don't have the resources to deal with changes. Can't Pinterest just figure out who it is and stop making changes, right? Because it feels like we're always putting out fires. So the first thing is to get into a place of acceptance around the fact that Pinterest is always changing. And it's not a bad thing, right? We start to think of like, oh, it's a bad thing. No, it's a good thing because Pinterest is always changing to make the experience better and better and better for everyone involved. Okay. Especially for the pinner. So if the pinner has a good experience, then they're going to come back to Pinterest over and over. And that's where we're going to get that person to be our free organic traffic in our organic traffic machine. Okay, we can't do anything if we don't have a place to go and get those people to come from and go to our site. And Pinterest is that place for us. So every change that Pinterest makes is going to be in the effort of making that experience for the pinner the best possible. So changes are good. If Pinterest stagnated and never changed, it would like die out. It'd just be like if you went to the store and they sold the same clothes over and over, you'd be like, I don't like this store anymore. It's boring. So the changes are good. So first is just accepting, okay, Pinterest is always changing. So if we accept that Pinterest is always changing, we can start to get in this place where we're like, okay, so Pinterest made another change. It's not freak out time, right? And it doesn't have to be something that just because Pinterest made a change, it doesn't have to be an assault on our time, right? Because as business owners, if you're a business owner, maybe you're a marketer, you've got clients, maybe you are managing accounts, maybe you are the person that manages the accounts for a business that you work in. Um, it doesn't have to like derail you and jack up your time because Pinterest made a change. We can look at the change and say, what does it mean for me? So we've got to be able to, one, accept that Pinterest is always changing, and two, learn to figure out what's the difference between the things that I can do something about, the changes that really affect me, and the changes that don't. So I saw a lot of people freaking out about like, oh my gosh, Pinterest doesn't have Etsy and YouTube connection anymore. Blah, blah, blah. And those people don't have an Etsy shop and they don't have a YouTube channel. So why bother freaking out and spending time, your precious time, discussing a change that does not deal with you? Now, is there something that that change could mean? Sure. Maybe, some people are saying, oh, they made it easier to connect Shopify. So that means that shopping is going to be more important on Pinterest. Maybe it is. Do you offer shopping? If you don't offer shopping, there's not really a lot you can do about that. Now, if you have a shopping cart on your site and you're not using Shopify, or if you are on some other platform and you're like, I've been thinking of, maybe you're on Sendell and I've been thinking about making my own shop on my own site. Maybe you're on TPT, right? Teachers Pay Teachers, and you're thinking about doing your own site. Then that information about, okay, Pinterest is making it easier to connect Shopify, they made it harder or impossible to connect Etsy, that information would go into your decision making of, should I go with Shopify or Etsy or whatever, or stay on TPT or whatever you decide to do for your stuff, right? For your selling, for your shopping cart. So it's just information for making a decision. You can't control what Pinterest is doing, right? So it's recognizing like, what affects me, what doesn't affect me, what do I have control over, and what do I not have control over, right? And so we have control over how much time we spend on these changes. A lot of times I see a lot of excitement about these things in Facebook groups, and it is really cool to discover that there's something that's different on a platform. But I think sometimes it can kind of become a distraction from us doing the work of like getting organic traffic to our site. That is the main goal all the time. So when we look at these things like the character count changed, the ability to connect Etsy and YouTube channels is changing. The question we always have to go back to is, how does this affect my ability to get organic traffic? That is like our guiding principle. And it makes things so much simpler when we approach it from that way. So one, Pinterest is always changing. Two, we got to figure out the difference between what we can change, what we can't change, what we can control, what we can't control. And, to not allow it to become this freak out mode. And then three is we need to look for the places of opportunity where we can make a change. Profile, having more characters, is an opportunity for all of us to give Pinterest more information about, hey, this is what my account is about. This is what I pin. This is what I offer over on my site. So those extra characters are additional places for us to put keywords in. That is what we can control. So then all you got to just put some time on the calendar, okay, over the weekend or maybe sometime next week. I'm going to go through and I'm going to maximize my Pinterest profile description. Awesome. Done. No massive amount of time needed for that, right? So look for the opportunity for where you can make changes and then schedule and make those changes. And it's pretty simple. Like if you don't have an Etsy shop, like all this hubbub about the Etsy being able to connect Etsy changing doesn't really affect you. Just the same as like if you don't have a YouTube channel, or like I have a YouTube channel, but I'm not really utilizing it very much right now. Does it really affect my organic traffic machine if Pinterest disconnects YouTube for some reason? No, because the place I make my money is on my website, right? It's on the blog. And that's where I need the traffic to go anyway. So now it's actually kind of simplified my life because I don't need to worry about the YouTube channel as much, right? I'm getting traffic over to my website. So just kind of being just very realistic about it. So those are the two changes that have really happened recently. And one of the things that people have told me is they're like, I love coming to your group and asking you about these things. We have a Q&A calls. We call them community coaching calls inside of our program, Smart Pin Pro. We have them every week as of the recording of this video, because sometimes those kinds of things change. But I love those calls because people bring questions like this. They bring information like this, and then we can be the voice of reason. And that's what people have told me is they're like, I love to come and ask you the questions because you're the voice of reason and you don't freak out and you're like, okay, well, what does this mean for us? And let's make a plan for how we're going to deal with it. Now, if you like that kind of approach, like I know I like that kind of approach, I want peace and calm in my life, in my business. If you like that kind of approach, then I invite you to get my roadmap. This would be the next step. I give you my full Pinterest traffic roadmap. It's everything that you need to know for having a different approach to Pinterest. Changes that have happened. There's a step-by-step framework for you to follow. There's all kinds of really awesome stuff in there to help you with Pinterest, especially if you've either been struggling with Pinterest, you're doing things the old way and they stopped working and you're so frustrated because you're like, I don't know why this isn't working anymore. Or you're new to Pinterest and you're like, I'm so worried about making mistakes. Everybody says different things. I wish there was just one place I could go to get information. Then this would be the tool for you. So I invite you to go get the roadmap. And even if you're just curious, go get the roadmap. The link is down in the description of this video. You can just find it right there. It's smartpin.pro/map for roadmap. Like I try to make it super simple. So I would love it if you went and got that. So the 4 things that you need to know about the changes that have been happening on the profiles over on Pinterest is 1, accept that Pinterest is always changing. 2, know the difference between what you can control and what you can't, what you can change and what you can't. And then looking at that, number 3 is to look for the opportunities for places where you can make the changes that will help you get more organic traffic, right? That's the only thing that's important to us is what do I need to do to get organic traffic? And then number 4 is get my roadmap. If you do not have this yet, it's really awesome. I update it all the time. And so you want to make sure that you grab that because it's my full roadmap. It's essentially like a whole ebook. Okay. Like I don't even give this much stuff away usually. It's a whole ebook. So I would love it if you guys went and grabbed that. And if you found this video helpful, I would love it if you told me that in the comments. What did you find helpful? Tag a friend that you think might need this. Hit the share button, send it to them in Messenger or in a message so that we can spread the word about Pinterest changes and what you can do about them. All right. Thank you guys so much for being here. And I hope to see you around in my free Facebook group. All right.